Hello everybody, good afternoon. It's wonderful to be with you at last after a short delay. My name's Nia Richards. I'm Development Manager for Teaching and Learning at CCE, and it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon to talk about why teaching matters, but as Isoa said, why creative teaching matters. It's something that we're very, very passionate about. I'll be co-presenting with my colleague Sian, and I'll just hand over to Sian for her to introduce herself.
Hi everybody, lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having us. Yes, my name is Sian. I'm also a development manager at Creativity, Culture and Education, or CCE for short. I spend two days of my week doing that. I work on secondment for them, and I spend the rest of my week working on a rather large-scale creative learning programme in Wales. And Nia and I have actually worked together on that programme over the last kind of 5 to 7 years as well. So yes, we have got an exciting story to share with you this afternoon, and we hope you enjoy it. Thanks, Nia.
Thanks, Sian. I'm just sharing my screen with everybody. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see that. Okay, with the short delay at the beginning, I might skip over a couple of these slides just to make sure that we keep on time. So apologies for that. In this presentation, I'm going to be making a case for creativity across all subjects and disciplines and discussing why creativity and creative teaching matters. So before we begin though, I want to tell you a little bit about our organisation, Creativity, Culture and Education, CCE. We're a UK-based charity, but we work globally with partners from far afield as Norway, Pakistan, Australia, Ireland and Wales, to just give you a few examples. And our goal is to transform the learning experiences of children and young people by supporting educators to develop confidence to teach creatively and for creativity, ensuring that learners are fully equipped to both meet the demands and thrive in a rapidly changing and complex world. Okay, so in our work, we often find that educators value creativity and critical thinking, but rarely have the opportunity to engage in professional learning activity around it. It's often something that teachers are left to just work out for themselves, or assumptions are incorrectly made about certain individuals within an organisation being the creative ones, that they're the natural creative people and the creativity is left to those people. And also it can sometimes be a fear about the unknown that inhibits teachers' confidence with creativity, because we don't tend to have a kind of roadmap, a model of what creative teaching looks like, because again it harks back to that lack of input in terms of professional learning and training. And finally, we come across the mistaken belief that creativity is solely about the arts. But at CCE, we believe that we can learn from the arts, and particularly the signature pedagogies within the subject, but creativity is not a skill or disposition specific to the arts. We believe that high impact professional learning focused on creativity leads to creative teachers and subsequently creative learners. And we believe that everyone is creative. It's a matter of developing it as a habit. It has to be used, it needs to be practiced, and it needs to be done intentionally. So let's go back to the start moment. I'm saying that creativity is not a skill that's nice to have, but it's a skill that's a must have, particularly in an increasingly complex world. But why? I'm going to share a short video with you now from Andreas Schleicher, Director for Education and Skills at the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD. And here he's going to explain why creativity is becoming such a priority for many policymakers and curriculum designers around the world, as you can see from some of these excerpts from different curriculums around the world on your screen now. And even within countries that are traditionally known for their traditional transmissive approaches to learning, that even they are taking creativity seriously and are looking at embedding this in their curricula. So I'll share this video with you just to explain that this video was taken during a break in OECD's conference on creativity and critical thinking. So there is a little bit of background noise, but it shouldn't impair the main messages.
critical thinking are at the heart of 21st century learning. We need to realize that the kind of things that are easy to teach and easy to test, the reproduction of subject matter content, in today's world, that's also easy to digitize, to automate. Those kind of skills are disappearing from our labor markets, our societies. The future will require people who can imagine, who can invent, who can connect the new knowledge with the old knowledge, who can sort of solve the problems that we can't yet imagine. So critical thinking and creative thinking are really at the heart of learning today. To give you a simple example, in the past, reading was about extracting knowledge from prefabricated text. You read a book, and when you didn't know the answer to a question, you look it up in an encyclopedia, and you can trust the answer to be true. Today, when you look up your questions on Google, you may get 20,000 answers to your question, and nobody tells you what is right and what is wrong. So you need actually the capacity to navigate ambiguity, triangulate knowledge, question the established wisdom of our times, not just reproduce it. So this is really, in a time of artificial intelligence, we need to think harder of what makes us human, and creativity and critical thinking are really central to this. Yeah, it's very easy to write those things into a school curriculum, that creativity and critical thinking are important. But then we need to think about the learning environments in which those skills are developed. Creative thinking is not developed if we just transmit knowledge to people. We need to have a much more active form of learning where students are co-creators of learning situations. And that then requires a different way of teaching. We need to enable teachers to build those kinds of skills and give them the support actually to create innovative learning environments. In the future, teachers will be less knowledge transmitters. The technology may do that as well. There will be more facilitators and mentors and coaches and designers of really innovative learning environments, understanding how different students learn differently. So I think it is very demanding on the teachers of tomorrow, but it will also make the job a lot more interesting, a lot more intellectually engaging than teaching currently is. We spend a lot of time on education to push new ideas into classrooms, and often old ideas into schools. We spend much too little time to find the good ideas, to find ways to scale them, to spread them. And the future of the education system is not going to trickle through from the top. It's going to be created by the experts in the field. Well, I think the efficiency of education is an important question. How do we spend our money best? But the biggest challenge of education today is that it's losing its relevance and purpose. Now we see, university graduates having difficulties finding a job, and at the same time, employers say they cannot find the people with the skills they need. There's a growing gap between what our education systems are delivering and what the world of tomorrow will require from people. And creativity, critical thinking, social emotional skills are what makes us different from computers. We have spent a lot of time in the industrial age to figure out how to teach second-class robots and people who work predictively. Now, in the time of artificial intelligence, we need to think harder of what makes us human, and creativity, critical thinking will be at the heart of it.
Okay, so I just want to pick up on a couple of really key points there, in that creative teaching and learning supports the move from knowing the world to understanding the world. For so long, we've been teaching to the test, and it's about knowledge transmission, and we need to change mindsets into thinking about what are our learners understanding in terms of the teaching that happens in our classroom environments. Creativity is also key to making education relevant. It supports innovative learning environments, and ultimately this makes teaching and learning far, far more interesting. And what we often see in our work is a renewed passion for education and for teaching. I'd like to show you another short video, and this time it's from our Chief Executive, Paul Collard, and he's talking here about what he's observed about creativity and the connection with learning.
Interested in at the moment in exploring what the impact of creativity is on learning. But really, I mean about this is to try and understand learning better. I think we heard from one of the presenters this morning that we actually probably know a lot less about learning than we ought to do. What actually goes on inside the mind, what inside the brain, what are the processes, and what is the relationship here to creativity? Because our experience in working in many countries and thousands of schools is that a focus on creativity does deepen learning, but we don't know why. Is that we don't spend enough time talking to the children themselves. What we observe, we don't actually talk to them in the depth and in the frequency that we really ought to do. Just to give you a small example, we did a small project recently in a grade 1 class in a primary school in Australia. Over the course of a whole semester, this grade 1 class designed their classroom. They worked with 2 amazing practitioners. A lot of psychological problems. And many adults think, well, how could you discuss classroom design with children who don't have many words and have very little experience of school? It's their first weeks in school. But actually, over the term, they had a really deep conversation, and the children came up with a whole series of concepts, which I think are really important. One of the things that they communicated is that texture, light, and smell is a much greater has a much greater impact on how they feel about a learning space. And yet it's never the ones that we think about. And architects, you know, like when they finish the building, they go, oh, better put some lights up. But actually, that's what the children really notice. And another concept that they had is that they said all spaces are powerful, which after a conversation, they were saying is all school spaces are manipulated. Now, it was amazing that 5-year-olds were saying this, but they're incredibly conscious about these things and these relationships. And if you take the time, they will tell you about it. And I think that too much of our theories of education and learning are based on our observation and our inference as to what we're observing, as opposed to really talking to children and young people about what they're learning.
So just to come back here, there's an awful lot of points there to pick up on, but I think one of the main things to take from that is that creativity is not just about what happens in the classroom, but it's about how it happens as well. So it's thinking about the conditions and the climate in terms of creativity happening effectively, and as Paul talked about there, in terms of dynamics, relationship dynamics in the classroom, and those kind of power relationships between teachers and learners all need to be considered as part of the creative repertoire within a teacher's practice and pedagogy. So at CCE we co-developed with Professor Bill Lucas and Guy Claxton and Ellen Spencer from Winchester University a model of creativity that helps us to define creativity, but also gives us a vocabulary as well, because one of the main challenges when we work with schools and work with teachers is having everybody agreeing on what we mean by creativity. I'm not going to talk about this too much at the moment because I know Sian's going to touch on it a little bit, and also on Saturday in our workshop we'll look at this a bit more deeply too. So for now I'm going to leave it there, and I'll come back to you later on with some key kind of takeaways for you and some things for you to think about. But for now I'm going to pass it over to Sian.
Great, thanks Nia. Right, we're going to share another little presentation with you now. Nia's going to bring that up in a second, but I'm going to share a little bit with you about the programme that we've been working on in Wales. It's been running for the last 7 years, and it's all about putting the arts right at the heart of the curriculum. So it's as I said, it's been running for 7 years, and it's a programme of extraordinary reach and impact, and really does highlight that the arts and creative approaches to teaching and learning should have a major role in all of our schools, where collaboration with arts and cultural organisations and with creative practitioners is a common feature, and where good practice is shared and is accessible to all. What I aim to share with you today is our story of change and transformation, all the while recognising that the pace of change is different in every school and is shaped by a myriad of influences and demands. So creative change programmes sometimes result in rapid and dramatic changes in schools' culture and a complete reworking of its ethos and approach. But actually, more commonly, these changes are gradual, building over time to an embedded approach. I'm going to quickly jump to the film now, which is the third slide. Before we play it, I just want to explain to you that even though this film was made quite recently, there's been a few changes in the roles and responsibilities of some of the speakers that you're going to hear. So just kind of bear that in mind while you're watching it, but the messaging, nevertheless, is all the same. Thanks very much. And I'm presuming the people can't hear that. Did we share the sound, Nia?
Literacy and well-being.
Thank you. That's fine.
Creativity is at the heart of learning. And learning is the most wonderful thing that human beings have ever invented. It is at the heart of being a human being. It's what differentiates us from the rest of the natural world. And it's magical.
The old model of learning and teaching, where teacher instructs pupil top down, you do what I tell you, is not going to create the learners that we need for the future. So for the well-being of society and for its prosperity, we need different kinds of learners. And creative learning through the arts is all about developing those. And the great news is that it works.
Times are changing, schools are changing, the kind of things we want from schools are different. We want young people to be more creative, to be better critical thinkers, to be able to work with others. Not just me saying that, the World Economic Forum is saying that, the OECD is saying that, UNESCO is saying that, employers up and down the land are saying that. These kind of skills are what employers want and what society needs.
This programme assists us with delivering on what I call our national mission. That national mission is to raise standards in our schools, close the attainment gap, and ensure that we have an education system in Wales that is a source of national pride.
Where programs like this happen across the world, we tend to see a number of things. We see higher levels of student engagement, higher levels of student well-being, kids saying they are happier, more in tune with what's going on. We see re-energized teachers. We see a greater attention to the quality of teaching and learning. All of these things are going to improve the quality of education.
Creative Learning Through the Arts is a programme which is designed to appeal to a wide range of schools, from primary to secondary. But we've noticed particularly those schools that have particular challenges. By bringing in creative specialists who can talk to the school, diagnose those problems, and come up with new and creative solutions, we've been seeing some very interesting projects that have really got to the heart of some of those persistent and difficult issues that some schools have to deal with.
apologies if you had any problems with the sound of that. I was picking up a few things in the chat, so sorry about that. But we'll share the video separately, perhaps after the presentation, so that you can perhaps listen to them again in your own time. But if we can just move on to the next slide now, please, Nia. So hopefully that gave you a really good flavour of what it is and what we're doing in Wales. So the scheme has a distinctive approach, and it starts from the belief that teaching is fundamentally a creative profession, and that teachers are well accustomed to finding creative solutions to complex challenges. And it's by pairing the complementary skills of creative practitioners and teachers with really helping schools to liberate the creativity of everyone involved, so that fresh and engaging approaches to teaching and learning are developed through that collaborative process. We focus on generating long-term dialogue about creative teaching and learning, and how schools can become effective creative learning environments. So it's about developing creativity and the creative skills in how our pupils learn and how our teachers teach. A part of the scheme is co-construction, co-delivery, pupil voice, and pupil decision-making, inquiry-based learning, and school-to-school sharing. So here we've got the opportunity to really reboot the whole way we think about and support the role that creativity plays in the lives of our young people. It's about delivering deeper and seeing how creative techniques can invigorate learning across the whole curriculum. We are challenging learners to develop their confidence and give them a more active role in learning, while supporting teachers to work across subject boundaries and to relook at how learning is organised. Moving on to the next slide and picking up what Nia touched upon earlier, which she showed you our definition of creativity. And this is how we define it. So we define it as a habit of mind using the model developed by Guy Claxton, Bill Lucas and Ellen Spencer at the Centre for Real World Learning at Winchester University. And we see it as a skill not bounded in the arts, and one that can be nurtured. So as you can see there, creativity brings with it the ability to question, make connections, innovate, problem solve, communicate, collaborate, and to reflect critically the skills that young people will need if they are to take responsibility for their own learning. These skills also enable them to adapt and to manage change, and are also the skills demanding by today's employers, as we heard earlier. But above all, creative learning empowers young people to imagine how the world could be very different, and gives them the confidence and motivation to make positive change happen. The next slide goes back to really when we developed the programme. And during that implementation and development phase, Arts Council of Wales, the organisation that I also work for, we actually sought the expertise of CCE, who had invested heavily in research and really looked under the bonnet of what was happening in classrooms and learning environments in their creative learning programmes. And what emerged was this, which we call the high functioning classroom. And this is when we believe that learning, regardless of its content, is at its very best. Now, we're not saying that low function is not always bad. Many education systems are built on this model, and some perform very well in international tests. But this environment doesn't really and always appeal to all learners. So what we're trying to do is to get teachers to be able to move across these two domains. So we need these learning experiences to be more responsive to the needs of the learners. And so our approach is to try and move schools into that right-hand column that you can see here. So schools located here remain structured with clear systems for monitoring, evaluation and reflection, but they're far more empathetic. And in such schools, there is a greater focus on personalisation. Pupils are more independent and confident. The approach to the curriculum is more flexible, and the teaching is structured in a way as to fully engage their learners. And these are considered to be high functioning or high systems schools. But for this to have an impact on our schools, this way of working needs to be adopted by teachers. And this requires teachers to focus more on processes rather than on outcomes, on the way the school is organised and the way that teachers teach rather than test results. My final few slides, if you could just move on to the next one, Nia, please. I'm just wanting to share some quotes with you, really, from teachers who have taken part. And we've observed excellent examples of problem solving, creativity and critical thinking through collaborative working in a number of schools. One of the most exciting observations we've seen over the life of the programme is the development in teachers' understanding of pupil voice through their participation in this scheme. And I think that pupil voice can often be tokenistic, or teachers perhaps would select the most well-behaved or enthusiastic pupils. And in doing so, there was a belief that these pupils would be the best representatives of the school outside agencies. But in contrast, actually, many of our teachers now understand that all pupils need to have their voices heard. They are all stakeholders in the school community. And by engaging them in this way, they are rewarded by pupils developing a sense of ownership and responsibility for their own learning. Further to this, teachers are beginning to understand that this is democratic education in action. In learning creatively, pupils are becoming ethical, informed citizens through the application of concepts such as fairness, rights, responsibilities, and expressing an opinion. Final slide, please, Nia. Different children learn in different ways, and it's difficult to cater for varying needs in the classroom environment. We know that, but we also know that by bringing creativity into the classroom helps this by providing teachers and learners with a range of learning techniques. Some achievements can be measured through school attendance and test scores, but teachers are also telling us about how they observe children growing in confidence, taking the lead in group situations, and of improvements in decision-making skills. So this programme is all about nurturing and developing the creativity of individuals, improving their academic successes, and is providing young people with crucial life skills. The impact on teachers' practice and learning has also been vast. Teachers have really embraced creative curriculum and have welcomed a new way to deliver familiar skills. And this has included changing environments as well as teaching styles. Timetables of each school day has become more flexible to allow children's creativity to blossom and remove an end point, and therefore focus on the process of learning. Teachers themselves are identifying to take greater risks in the classroom, and they're feeling a lot more confident and comfortable to do this. They're sharing their learning with other colleagues and also recognising themselves as creative individuals. I'd like to just share now a very short film with you that will hopefully show you some of this in action. It is from a secondary school up in North Wales, a Welsh medium school. So Welsh is the language of the day, of the school day, and is spoken by every pupil. And what the school wanted to do there was to use this project to enhance the learners' oracy skills, and wanted to encourage them to use English beyond their English classes. So I'm just going to share this with you, which will hopefully show you some of this in action. And I do hope that the sound isn't too bad. Share sound. Okay.
Dyn ni'n gweithio yn Ysgol y Berwyn yn Bala, am lot ohonyn nhw, mae Saesneg yn ail iaith iddyn nhw.
Lot o blant, well gan nhw ddysgu ac wneud rhywbeth ymarferol, siarad, actio a perfformio, ac wrth gwrs dyna be mae'r prosiect yma yn galluogi ni'n wneud wrth cael ymarferwyr fewn o tu allan a wneud gwaith ymarferol gyda'r plant.
We are taking our comedy skills and hopefully imparting enough under them so that we can do a comedy sketch or review, whatever form it eventually takes, through very much the children leading it. And we want to produce something that they can see and have been proud of having taken part of.
Dwi'n meddwl mae yna lot o arbenigedd o fewn y tîm, a mae pawb yn gwerthfawrogi yr arbenigedd yna. Felly dwi'n meddwl dwi'n reit hyderus bod fi sort of pasio pethau ymlaen i'r cam nesaf, yn union lle dylse pethau bod ar hyn o bryd. Mae'r prosiect wedi bod yn mynd yn gret, allai deud llawer yng Nghalon, dyma un o'r prosiectau mwy o cyffroes dwi wedi bod yn Rhwma erioed. A dwi'n meddwl mae lot hwnna lawr i'r tîm.
Oh, it's been so much fun. It's been manic. We've been asking for them to show creativity and giving them opportunities to do this. But what surprised us is how creative they have been on things where we weren't expecting them to.
I think this, for some of them, might be the first taste of that real thinking outside the box. A lot of what we've been doing is problem solving, especially as we've gone into the sketches. They're remarkably ambitious, a lot of them. We've got sea monsters arriving. We've got people floating up into the air.
Mae'r plant wedi ymateb nhw wych iddo fo. Maen nhw'n mynd adre, maen nhw'n sôn wrth rhieni. Da ni'n gweld pethau ar Facebook sy'n dangos y math o waith nhw wedi bod yn gwneud. Maen nhw'n creu pethau adre i ddod mewn nhw i fod yn rhan o'r prosiect gwych. O'n i'n dychmygu o'r cychwyn fysa hwn yn hanner mor llwyddiannus am wedi bod. Mae'n bod yn wirioneddol effeithiol.
I think they're going to be so proud of what they've achieved, and I can't wait to see their faces.
Wel, dyn ni yma heddiw yn Neuadd Buddig i edrych ar y ffilm dyn ni wedi bod yn gwneud efo'r plant, efo Dan a Sarah.
As practitioners, we were quite nervous because we've been building up to the end of this project for quite a few months now. I think it helped kind of give that sense of closure to the whole project and help kids really realise the scale of what they'd achieved. I think having it in a cinema really helped as well because it made them feel like they'd done something proper, which they had.
What we've done is actually make a TV show with a bunch of kids and teach them how to make a TV show, and it's just amazing. It was lovely to see their reactions. They were looking over at us as well because they were so proud of it, because it was their thing, the film was.
Mae di bod yn 10 wythnos hilarious. Lot o waith, ond y peth gorau amdano fo ydy bod y plant wedi datblygu gymaint.
We were noticing things like the kids were explaining things to each other in Welsh. They were using Welsh words in place of things. I really think that as we went on over the course of the months, we found that they were doing this less and less. And they were starting to feel comfortable with the explanations being in English and with explaining and talking ideas through in English. And also they just became happier about using it day to day in the classroom and about performing things in that language. And that was really exciting to see. So I think it's been great from that perspective. For that, I'm really, really proud of what they've achieved. It's great.
Getting to the end of the project is actually quite emotional, and I honestly thought like I was going to cry. I know it was really funny and I was laughing my head off. I was like doubled over in laughter, but it's so emotional because for them to have that level of English speaking is it's so nice, and like seeing some of the kids up there who never ever speak normally in a lesson, and they're speaking on screen, and I've got evidence that they're speaking on screen is amazing.
We've brought so much of traditional learning ideas and things in as well, so the teachers were really helping to guide us in terms of things like the curriculum and the kinds of points that we needed to cover. But giving these kids a chance to show that off in a creative way, I think was fun for them, and I think it was fun for everyone, so I'm hoping that will be a benefit to them and to the teachers going on in the future.
Okay. Oh my word. Sorry about that. None of you needed to hear that. Not sure what that was with my YouTube video continuing. Anyway, I really hope that's just giving you a flavour of some of that, of a project in action, and really shows how using creative approaches can have a really great effect on a project like that, where they were looking to develop literacy skills, sort of looking at English as a second language, if you like, in a Welsh medium school. And I'm now going to hand back over to Nia. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Sian. And I hope everybody can hear me this time. I just picked up in the chat, like Sian said too, about some interferences earlier, but hopefully you'll be able to pick up on those videos that I did share. We'll share the links with you all, and you can hopefully watch those at another point too. Okay, so I just want to finish, because I know we're coming up to time. I just want to finish with some kind of key takeaways and some further thinking for you to go away with some of the messages that we've given today. Both Sian and I pointed you towards the creative habits of mind, that framework where we define creativity. It gives us a vocabulary for creativity. So a suggestion here would be, if you're thinking about exploring creativity, it's to start by identifying where the creative habits of mind are already visible and part of your practice, and where those strengths are, build on those as a starting point. And then secondly, how are your learners currently being involved in their learning? How are you building a sense of agency? And where might there be gaps where learners could become more involved and learner voice could become a bigger part of your daily practice? And another point for you is, how are you modelling creativity to your learners? For example, do your learners see you collaborating with others? Often this happens. Teachers, of course, collaborate, educators collaborate, but often it happens outside of classroom time. It happens after school, before school, so it's just looking for opportunities for our learners to be able to see us as educators living and modelling these creative habits on a daily basis too. Where might there be opportunities to bring creativity into your practice by developing connections with outside partners? In that lovely video you just saw, the school were working with creative practitioners who actually happen to be comedians, but who do you have around you that you could collaborate with to bring new ideas into your daily practice again? And finally, going back to an earlier point in terms of thinking about your learners and what they think about their learning and what happens in the learning environment. Put yourselves in your learners' shoes. In terms of research data, it's available anytime it's needed. And often when we work with teachers, it's people seem to think that they know what their learners think about their the teaching and learning that's going on in the classroom, but they're often surprised when they have these kind of conversations with their learners. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for being patient with us this afternoon because of the delay and the interferences. I hope the rest of the conference goes smoothly, and it's an interesting programme. And hopefully you'll join Sian and I again on Saturday, where we'll be back to deliver a workshop with you, so a practical session. But thank you very much for inviting us. It's been absolutely wonderful to be with you this afternoon.
Yes, thanks very much, everybody. And we look forward to seeing you on Saturday if you can join us. That'd be great.